everyone. Welcome to the Late Winner Show. I have Jeremy and Scott with me today to talk about the Nations League. Yeah, we're not talking any Premier League, any La Liga, any Liga. Sorry, Jeremy, but we're here. It's the international break. We're going to talk about the Nations League, which obviously nobody cares about. So we're going to do some digging, make sure that you're interested, and maybe watch the Nations League finals this coming week. Um, Before we actually start, obviously, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe to the Late Winner Show. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter. Give us those likes; definitely helps us with the algorithm. And yeah, let's start. Jeremy, how and Scott, how you guys doing?
Good man. Thanks for having me, Rishabh. Good to talk to you as well, Scott.
Yeah, I'm good. It's great to be here. Thanks for the invite. It's nice to be back, Rishabh.
Yeah. Are you guys excited about the Nations League or not? Like, obviously, not both of your teams did not really have a good Euros. So are you guys excited? Like, maybe there's another trophy that you can fight for?
I think what's exciting is the four teams in the semifinals are actually very good teams. Like
Yeah.
Italy, obviously, is the European champion, and the young Spanish team is doing all right. And Scott and I know that both our teams have generations that should win something. And despite the struggles, I mean, we win stuff in that corner. But I think that makes that little final series interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's difficult to sort of enthuse fans about the Nations League, isn't it? I think we've all found that the case, and I don't think that's going to change. It's just a tournament that football fans don't generally take very seriously, for reasons which are kind of understandable. But as Jeremy's alluding to there, it's a chance to win something, and that's absolutely not to be sniffed at, especially if you've been expected to win some of the the proper big prizes, and haven't recently. So yeah, it's something that should be taken a little bit more seriously than it should.
Yeah, the first Nations League semifinal goes down on Wednesday, the October 6th, when Italy is facing Spain at Milan San Siro, and then we shouldn't forget that Italy beat Spain on penalties in the Euro 2020 semifinals, and then the second semifinal, which we're going to talk today, is Belgium and France, who face off in the second semifinal on Thursday, October 7th, and they go to head in Juventus's Allianz Stadium, and they meet for the first time since 2018. After that, we have the third place playoff, which takes place on Sunday, and then later that evening we have the final, which will obviously take place between the winners of both the semifinals. Let's deep dive into France first. Can France actually make amends for the Euros failure? It's no secret that France had endured a summer to forget. The reigning world champions, failed up to live up to the expectations at the European Championship, and ended up failing at the first knockout hurdle, losing to Switzerland on penalties in the last 16. Didier Deschamps' men clearly suffered something of a Euros hangover, if that's something that I can call. They had shock draws at Russia. They had shock draws by Bosnia and Ukraine in September's World Cup qualifiers. Their results since Euro 2020 has been 1-1 draw with Bosnia, 1-1 draw with Ukraine, and then 2-0 win, a 2-0 win against Finland. There's absolutely no denying that France possesses the best firepower between the four teams that they have, between the four teams that we have in the Nations League tournament, to actually win the entire tournament. And I mean, there's no secret. We all know Mbappe is probably the MVP for France. With and they also possess world class stars like Varane, Kante, Karim Benzema, and it's no surprise that France are actually favorites to win the Nations League this time around. Jeremy, do you think that France can go ahead and win that because of all the results that we've seen in the past, or do you think that they're still trying to Didier Deschamps is still trying to find the right balance with Benzema now in this point?
Yeah, exactly. I think France can win, and for a very simple reason. What is systematic in all those big teams like France, like Belgium as well, is there are teams that perform much better against good teams that they do against so-called weaker teams. So when you see how France played against Germany at the Euro in the first game, they were impressive. They really dominated at times, and when they were not dominating, they were showing how solid they can be defensively. And then next thing you know, you play Switzerland, which is supposedly a weaker team, and you do the job by being 3-1 up with 10 minutes left, and yet you don't qualify. I think France has that syndrome where when they're going to play a team that's not as good, they're just not going to go up to level. They're just going to relax and think that they're the better team, and that's going to eventually we're going to score. Don't worry about it. Kind of mentality. I think slowly but surely this is being shaken up, but it's still happening. When you play Belgium, and then whether it's Italy or Spain, all of a sudden the motivation is much higher. Those guys know each other from club football. There's a bit of a psychological ascendant that needs to be taken during this game, and obviously there's a bit of revenge from the World Cup for the Belgian side, and also for the French side, because we didn't play well even though we won that game. So I think the ingredients are here for France to win it. Last thing, of course, France didn't play well. Could have played better at the Euro and could have played better against Bosnia and against Ukraine.
Yeah.
But France adding a player like Karim Benzema in the team, who's a game changer in so many ways. He simplifies the football that's being played around him. He sort of needs to be a focal point, but he also needs to find the automatism with Griezmann and Mbappe. He's always going to be hard to adapt. And so Deschamps tried the 4-3-3, the 4-3-1-2, whatever tactics he's usually using. And then he figured out that against Finland, the last game, a 3-4-3 or a 3-4-2-1 is actually the best tactic for him, and to be able to leave Benzema and Griezmann some freedom to play off each other and not run out into the same zone. So I think that they're slowly getting there. I think they're all getting along a little bit better, which is interesting. No Kante this week, I think, if I'm not mistaken. He's not going to be able to play, so we're going to have 𝗕𝗲𝗎 instead, which is as good. So I'm not too worried. But yeah, I think we're going to see that 3-4-3 with Griezmann and Benzema either playing off Mbappe or playing off Martial, because if you look at the recent form, Mbappe is on 6 games, all competitions, without scoring, and Martial is on a much better form, as I'm sure you know, 𝗕𝗲𝗓.
He's definitely not.
So it's a team that I think is getting back into what their strength is supposed to be. I think getting the 2 Hernandez brother is such a good call for Deschamps, because they need that grinta, that psychological aspect, that aggressivity aspect that those guys bring to the team, and hopefully they don't mess it up. But it's going to be an interesting game, because playing against Belgium is the bread and butter of Didier Deschamps. He loves to play against a team that wants to play football, because he can just drop down, play low, park the bus, so to say, and use direct football to counter attack.
You were mentioning about having this. He's focusing on that squad balance, but don't you think, like, if we rewind a couple of years back when they won the World Cup, everything was running through Mbappe and I think Griezmann as well. But now, like, it just feels like it feels like how PSG operate at the moment. Like, they just have so much attacking power, but there's no kind of gelling between the players, and I feel like that's what's going on with the French squad as well. They have so much attacking talent, but everyone possesses that individual brilliance, but nobody's able to play as a team, and that's why that's one of the reasons that I feel like they struggled in the Euros as well, because obviously, and I think getting Benzema back, like, just a couple of months before, or like not even a couple of months, I think a month before, when they said that he's going to be part of the squad, don't you think that disbalances the squad? Like, I feel like since Deschamps was already planning everything through Mbappe, he should have given a little bit more time to integrate Benzema into the squad.
I think what happened with the French national team, to give you a bit of background, is back in February the team played really badly against, I think it was either Belarus or Ukraine, I can't remember, and Deschamps got really pissed off at the team not performing, and basically got scared that his message wasn't going through, and so that Mbappe starting seeing his head getting larger and larger. And so he was wondering what the solution is. Griezmann isn't performing at Barcelona. Mbappe thinks he's all that, but he hasn't arrived yet, and he's forgetting what his core strengths are. And so I think he got a bit scared. I think calling Benzema in was a bit of a shock value situation where he didn't even tell Lloris and Varane, his lieutenant on the field, that he was coming back. I think it was a shock value of none of you guys are expendables. Like, I can find somebody to replace any of you, and you should get used to it, because getting Benzema in, the shift goes to Benzema. However you turn it, however good Griezmann, Mbappe, Pogba, Kanté, all those guys can be, none of them is as good as Benzema. None of them has done what Benzema has done, the continuity, the consistency in a club like Real Madrid. At one point they were trying to find strikers to replace Benzema. Benzema saw them off one by one because of how much he brings to a squad. And I think bringing Benzema in was a bit of a, you guys should know that there's better players around it if you don't want to keep gelling, like you're saying. And when Benzema came in, it sort of, I think, on one hand, calmed the egos, but there's one of them that hasn't been calmed, and it's Kylian Mbappe. And when you talk about the lack of gel and the lack of people playing together, I think Kylian Mbappe was a focal point of that. He had some very weird media outing during the Euro saying, or I don't know if Griezmann is the one getting the penalty kicks. I mean, I can get them. Or I don't know who's going to get the free kick. I mean, I can get them. So putting himself in front instead of the other players. And that's something that Deschamps just hates. So Mbappe, the story is in France that got a pretty stern talking to. The other players that didn't play the game are Olivier Giroud and Kingsley Coman. Coman is injured, but if he wasn't injured, I don't know that he would be called. And Giroud has basically been almost banned from the team because he said something publicly in the media which Deschamps doesn't like. So I think you're right. We've seen that lack of gelling happening in the Euro. But what I keep telling all the people that criticize Deschamps is that one thing that Deschamps has is he wins. All he wants to do is winning, and he'll do whatever it takes to win, even if it's not getting the best player supposedly in the team. What he knows as well is the player in that whole squad that wants to win the most is Karim Benzema. He's the one player that hasn't won anything with the international team compared to everybody else, and so he's going to be pushing that team forward. Plus, he's going to teach all those young kids what humility is, because he's a very humble player for all he's won. So I think that's his plan with Benzema. And even though it might look like he hasn't gelled too much just after the Euro, the link-up play and the football has been so much better than what it was before the Euro. I mean, in France, we were all like, oh, what's going on? Deschamps is the coach and we're not playing football. This is not what we're used to. Deschamps doesn't play football. Deschamps plays defensive and use the speed of Mbappe to try and score a goal or a free kick from Griezmann. So it's surprising to us, but of course he couldn't do it for too long. So now we're going to play with almost 5 defenders. But having Benzema up front is, I agree with you, a bit what PSG does. But if it works the right way, if the players are working the right way, it'll work. The advantage that France has compared to PSG is that Griezmann and Benzema love to defend. They love the hard work that is defensive work, which is what Paris doesn't have, which is what Mbappe doesn't have. And so either he'll learn or he'll fail, I guess. But I'm pretty comfortable that team spirit is coming back, and that players like Pogba know that they had a very bad year last year and they want to bounce back. He had a great Euro, but he wants to keep on. And all this team, they saw themselves as winning the World Cup, the Euro, the World Cup. Failing at the Euro is going to be a chip on their shoulder that they really want to move up. And there's that narrative behind this team where they all tell each other, we can make history, let's make history. So I wouldn't be surprised if they take that Nations League pretty seriously to try and get a trophy between the 2 World Cups.
Okay. Final question for you. Who do you think, and are you happy with the squad that has been selected? And who do you think is according to you, what's the best formation for France, and what's the predicted lineup according to you?
Yeah, the squad is good. I mean, you could have added maybe Nkunku, the forward of RB Leipzig, because he's in form, but you would have added him to put him on the bench. So it doesn't matter too much for the Nations League. I think the formation is obviously 𝗲𝗏𝗧𝗘 in goals. I would think that Deschamps is going to go with 3 central defenders, which should be Varane, Kimpembe, and Lucas Hernandez. And then for midfield, the 2 in the middle of the park being Pogba and 𝗬𝗏𝗓, Pavard on the right, and 𝗕𝗲𝗹𝗹.
I think I lost Jeremy.
Frozen for a few seconds there. We'll come back in, I'm sure.
Yeah, I think but we'll come back to that question. So it's so that's fine. Yeah. So Scott, let's preview Belgium. Belgium as well, definitely. When the Red Devils got the main question for Belgium would be, can Belgium go all the way? When Red Devils got knocked out defending defending champions Portugal in the last 16 at Euro 2020, they must have really thought that they could go all the way, but that obviously did not happen again. They were beaten by Italy 2-1, and in the quarterfinals, leading to another early exit from a major tournament for Roberto Martinez's side. Since then, however, normal service has been resumed. Belgium picked up 3 straight wins in the World Cup qualifying, dispatching Estonia 5-2, Czech Republic 3-0, and Belarus 1-0. Still, there are major questions over their aging defense. Thomas Vermaelen is 35, Jan Vertonghen is 34, and 𝗕𝗲𝗪 is 32. And they're well into, all of them are basically well into their 30s. There is a sense that, Belgium's backline can be exposed with obviously what we just got to know from Jeremy. We all know the Mbappe pace and they have pace on the flanks as well. Do you think Belgium can stop them in any way, or do you think that they have the chance to actually go for that silverware? And I think we've discussed that previously as well, where they have their golden generation is kind of getting over as we speak, and these are a couple of tournaments that are left for them, which starts here with the Nations League.
Yeah, I think this is a difficult one for Belgium actually, because that expectation to finally win something hasn't really gone away. But I think in Belgium there's an acceptance actually that this side probably are past their best. You're highlighting the defence there, and I completely agree with you. I think that's the weakest area of the squad. There's no doubt about that. There's plenty of quality in the defence, but they're all the wrong side of 30. And the concern always a major tournament, particularly when you're playing a side as good as France or the other sides that they could have faced, is all of those sides have pacey, creative attackers and wingers, and when those players start to run at that Belgian defence, you've got to be concerned. I mean, the Euros, I wasn't too disappointed with the Euros, to be honest, because my feeling about the defence was that it would get exposed in the knockout stages of the tournament. And ultimately, that's what happened. They got the better of Portugal rightly. I thought they were better than Portugal. Portugal are one of those sides that blow very hot and cold, and Belgium were able to make the most of that at the tournament. I think when they went out to Italy, the Italians were playing extremely well, and I said to a lot of people before that tournament started, I thought that the Italians would do very well. I didn't necessarily think they would win it, but I thought they would do very well. And that night, there were large periods of that game where Italy were actually unplayable. I thought Belgium played pretty well on the night for the most part, but the Italians were just so good that there was nothing that Roberto Martinez could have tweaked with the system, and he doesn't really vary his system. He's not a particularly pragmatic coach in that sense. He never has been. He likes to play a certain way, and it doesn't change. It's just the personnel that change broadly. So that's another slight challenge for Belgium, I think, longer term, in that I think everybody knows the system that they play now, and that makes it harder for them, I think, to have the impact sometimes that they would like. hopefully the injuries that key players had at the Euros are now behind them. You know, 𝗕𝗲𝗧𝗘 wasn't 100% fit, although he had a pretty decent tournament, all things considered. 𝗲𝗲𝗓𝗏 was playing with an injury as well. So, you know, they need the spine, that experienced quality spine of that side, those key players to perform at the top of their game if they're going to do well. And I think physically those key players are in a slightly better position now than they were at the Euros. So there is a little bit of hope, I think, in the Belgian camp that because the French have been a little bit disappointing recently, that maybe, just maybe there's something in this for them. But the worry again would be what I mentioned. It would be that kind of pacey French attack running at the Belgian back three. Although it'll be interesting to see if he does keep a back three, because that there's a lot of pace and creativity there, and I think they need some extra cover. And normally that would be 𝗕𝗲𝗧𝗘. Normally he'd sit in front of the defence and provide that little bit extra protection. You know, he's very good at spraying the ball around and picking his passes and switching transitions very, very quickly. That's why he's so important to the system. So it's one of those tricky ones from a Belgian point of view. I think it's a tricky game, this, and there's a little bit of trepidation because you know, I think they really need something to go their way here, I think, and they could do with getting to a final to basically to be able to say that there has been some progress, because there is growing disquiet in Belgium around Bobby Martinez's position, which I think is misplaced, but that's what happens when fans' expectations aren't met.
Yeah, I mean, you know, the thing is, I mean, I wouldn't discredit any team who loses here. I mean, you know, they haven't been with the squad for what, like they will be with the squad for like what, 2-3 days max, to get that system flowing into them. Yeah, I wouldn't blame any team to not actually win the title here. There shouldn't be, and there shouldn't be any discredit given to that. I think all of their focus. This is just an extra tournament that obviously organized by UEFA. I mean, in the last couple of years, but I don't think like anybody, to be very honest, like I don't think like coaches would get sacked because if teams did not win this UEFA Nations League. I think everyone has their eyes set on for next year for the big thing, which is the World Cup. So I don't think like even if Belgium does not do it, it doesn't really matter. But again, like what you mentioned is like, you know, sometimes these tournaments give you like a kick, and if you win it, Belgium goes into the FIFA World Cup like really high on confidence, saying that we do have a trophy to show for it, for what we've been trying to achieve in the last 7 to 8 years.
Yeah, I think you're dead right about that, actually. I mean, I think one of the disappointing things from a Belgian perspective is, regardless of what happens over the next few days, I think fans were kind of hoping that Martinez might use this as an opportunity to bring in 2 or 3 younger players who really should be in that squad now. You know, I'm thinking of players like Zeno van Huysden and 𝗂𝗓𝗏, and unfortunately Zeno's got a slight hamstring issue at the moment, which is probably why he's not in the squad, because there were a lot of eyebrows raised about that a couple of days ago when the squad was announced. You know, why isn't he there? He really should be. I think even if he was, I don't think he would play. I think Roberto Martinez is very set, like I say, in his system, and he has tried and trusted players, and he will play those players if they're fit because of that system, and he'll only revert to other players who lots of us might like to see more of, if he's forced to. And we can criticise him for that quite a lot, and plenty of people have, but it's a kind of coach's prerogative, really. You live or die by your kind of choices, and it's a difficult one. I think you have to look at the next few days as a bonus, really. You know, if you do well out of it, then like you say, it's a big shot in the arm, and it's good for everybody. It makes people feel good about themselves, and you can have a really good positive bounce factor that lasts a while from that, and that would be the hope. But like I was saying at the beginning, I think winning something, definitely nothing to be sniffed at there, and you've got to go for this, I think.
Yeah, and obviously, I think since I have you, I want to ask you, what can you tell us more about Hans Vanaken and 𝗪𝗔𝗧𝗘 𝗪𝗏𝗪? I think they've both had really good seasons up until now. I think with Club Brugge, I think defeating Leipzig as well. I think Hans Vanaken had a really big impact in that game. Like, what are you expecting from them in the Belgium shirt?
Well, both of them have been playing pretty well recently. Over the last month, they've both had a really good month at kind of club level, know each other well, obviously, both playing for Club Brugge regularly. Van Aken, I think, in particular, has looked quite good. He's kind of struggled to make much of an impression at international level for me, so this is interesting. I don't expect him to start. Or 𝗕𝗲𝗓𝗕𝗏, but I think they're definitely there on the strength of their last month's performance, and I think Martinez is going with players who are obviously in form, and that makes complete sense in light of what you were saying about the fact that the squad are only going to be together for 2-3 days maximum. So kind of coming in and going with players who are fit and performing well, I think for the clubs is actually the smart thing to do here. Both good players. The 𝗕𝗲𝗓 obviously in particular is extremely highly rated. There was a lot of talk he would get his big move this summer. It didn't happen, I think rightly so. I think it's slightly too early for him yet. I think he needs a little bit more time at Bruges. He's doing well there. And obviously they're playing regular Champions League football, so he's in a good place to continue developing. I'd be very surprised if next summer he doesn't get his big move to wherever that is. There's a lot of talk at the moment that could be somewhere in Italy. There's a number of Italian sides tracking him kind of quite closely. Van Aken equally. There's a number of Premier League clubs that are sniffing around him again. Obviously, he turned down West Ham a year or so ago, famously, to stay in Belgium, where he's very happy, actually. Obviously, all of his family are here, and he's one of those players who I think probably would be happy to see his career out at Bruges, in all honesty. I don't think he would feel bad about that at all. He's very happy. He doesn't have those aspirations, particularly to try himself in another league. And I don't see anything wrong with that. He's been criticised for that, but I think there's a lot to be said for that actually these days. If you're happy, then why twist sometimes when you don't have to. Both good players, and we might see them at some point during the game, actually, depending on how the game's going, I think.
Awesome, that's great. Final question for you as well. What do you think is the best? Are you happy with the squad? And what do you think is the best lineup with best formation according to you? What do you think Roberto Martinez should play?
I think he'll stick with his tried and tested 3-4-2-1. I'd be very surprised if he didn't. There might be a slight tweak later depending on how the game's going. The squad, I wasn't overly disappointed with it. It is what I expected. I'd love 𝗏𝗏𝗏 to have been in there, but he's got that slight injury, as I was saying, so isn't. 𝗕𝗏𝗏𝗏 not being there is a slight surprise. He had a very good game yesterday against Anderlecht in the league, where he probably should have had a couple of goals. He had a great game. He's another player that I think probably should be in there, but he's not going to change too much, Roberto. I think it'll be as expected. 𝗕𝗲𝗏𝗏 will be in goal. It'll be any 3 from 4 in the back three. So I would expect 𝗪𝗓𝗪, Denayer, and probably Vertonghen, because I think 𝗪𝗓𝗪, although he's in the squad, he's got a slight strain, I think, and he's ultimately there because 𝗏𝗏𝗏's injury is a bit worse from what I can gather. Obviously, big Romelu Lukaku, who needs no introduction whatsoever, arguably the best striker in the world at the moment, is will play up front, and then he's got a number of midfield options. I think Witsel will sit in the holding role as he always does. Probably De Bruyne, De Donker, wide Eden Hazard, possibly his brother Thorgan might start, although if he doesn't, Castagne Carrasco will, I think. Okay. And I think Trossard's in with a shout of a start as well. So very, very little change. I think it'll be exactly as expected, actually, is the phrase I would use from a Belgian perspective.
Yeah. I'm glad that he said arguably Romelu Lukaku is the best striker in the world, because I would have jumped and said no, because I have my thoughts, I have my doubts on him, and probably that's something that should be left for another podcast, but not right now.
I was just going to say we could do a whole show on that.
Jeremy, I think we lost you when you were explaining the squad. So yeah, we would love to know, what's the squad that Didier Deschamps should play according to you.
Yeah, so I think he'll get that 3-4-3 that he used against Finland with so Lloris would be the the keeper, the three defender being Varane, Kimpembe, and Lucas Hernandez. Then the two central midfielder, Pogba and 𝗬𝗏. On the right, Pavard. On the left, Theo Hernandez. And then up front, Griezmann as a number 10 and Benzema and Mbappe in front of him. I wouldn't be surprised if he swaps Mbappe for Martial, like I said, just for form. And then, keeping Mbappe to come in at the 60th minute is always, it's a good weapon to be able to have, bringing a guy like him, like this earlier. I like the squad. I like that you have Digne.
Well, I think we lost him again.
Lost him on 𝗕𝗲𝗓𝗏.
Yeah. Okay. Anyways, I think yeah, I'll let it be. I guess we'll definitely post it online what Jeremy's thoughts are. But I think we're having some connection issues on our end, so sorry about that. But thank you, Scott and Jeremy. If he can oh, okay, he's back. So
Sorry.
yeah, I think we're having connection issues, so no worries. I just said that we're going to post our post your squad, what your predicted lineup is on Twitter. It's just we're having connection issues. Or is it because your Marseille lost today, so you're having some connection issues?
Exactly what it is. When Marseille doesn't win, everything falls down in my house. Paris didn't win either, so it should work. I don't know.
I hope that this week can bring you some glory. Like, I saw the score in the morning. It's like, hey, Marseille lost. It's like, oh man, Jeremy must be really disappointed today. But
waking up at 2 a.m. for that was hard.
Jeremy and Scott, thank you again for joining and providing your thoughts on the Nations League semi-final that we're about to have on Thursday. Do check out Jeremy's podcast as well at Farmer Corners FC on Apple. He runs it on Apple Podcasts and Spotify or any other major platforms that you have for listening to audio podcasts. We'll leave the links in the descriptions below. Do check them out as well. For Scott Coin's podcast, it's a Belgian football podcast. Anyone who wants to know more about the Belgium leagues, what Belgium is doing, and any in-depth knowledge on Belgium, the Belgium Pro Leagues, definitely go check out his channel as well. Provides great insights on the Belgium team as well. We'll leave the descriptions in the links below as well. Again, yeah, thank you again. Thank you guys joining for joining again, and I hope to do this one more time.
Thanks, Scott. Thank you, Richard.
Cheers, guys.
Thank you.